This is an Indianomics special, and the question we are seeking to ask India Inc. is, what have they made of the first 365 days of the Modi government? Well, Dr. Gokarna, coming back to you, on Jan Dhan, it's one of the biggest, high-flying, most obvious programs of the NDA government, created 11 crore accounts. How would you rate this program? Is it a feather in the government's cap? Is it a big deal for the economy?
Well, I think, evolution is critical here. We have moved from a phase one of a financial inclusion strategy, or stage one of a financial inclusion strategy, that is creating the channel, opening accounts. That is phase one. Phase two is populating the channel, putting services, products that are meaningful for the people that you want to include, that actually help them to increase their financial access, increase their options, give them a greater access to capital so that their productivity can increase, their incomes can increase. So when you look at what has happened in the Jan Dhan Yojana and the follow-up programs that we saw launched last week, we've actually used the banking system to start pushing products of relevance. So there is a basic account and the savings function that goes with it. You have an overdraft or a credit function that is tagged on to the Jan Dhan Yojana through the 5,000 rupee overdraft facility. And now you've got insurance and pension products. There's general accident insurance, life insurance, and pension. Now all of these are at relatively small scales, small ticket sizes, but that's the starting point. So I see the Jan Dhan Yojana and the overall financial inclusion strategy as a natural evolution from phase one, which was open as many accounts as you can, to phase two, which is make those accounts meaningful. Let people see value and utility in those accounts. That has happened. The third dimension of this, which I think is still a little fuzzy, and we need to be clarifying that as much as possible, is how much is all of this going to cost? Who is going to bear that cost? Is it the customer, which would be a problem because these are basically people at relatively low levels of income? Is it the banking system? In which case, are you imposing a public service mandate on institutions that are financed partly, at least, by private capital? So is there a shareholder rights issue here? Have banks taken their own business decisions to pursue these products? So there's an issue there. Or is it going to be the government, which then implies subsidies and fiscal stress? So we have to get some clarity on how this entire initiative, which as a design I think is very good. It is an excellent combination of channel plus product, but the cost issue to me remains unresolved, and I think we have to be getting some clarity on how much is it going to cost the system and who is going to bear that cost. People tell me all kinds of things. It is bearable, it is not bearable. I don't have clear evidence in front of me that suggests it's one way or the other.
Okay, Kaushik, on tax, this government came with a promise of reducing tax terrorism. Now, forget MAT. Have the tax laws gotten any easier?
I would say that is still work in progress. On the tax front, tax has got two implications. One is the absolute amount of tax that the government collects and the absolute amount of tax that a assessee pays. The second one is the perception of taxation system in a country which creates either the confidence or the despair of whether one makes a future investment, whether it's a domestic investor or whether it's the overseas investor. And there was an article yesterday in the Financial Times regarding the tax systems in India and the need to kind of walk the talk and walk it consistently for a long period of time. I think that there is a lot of sound bites coming in from the government, the minister himself, and I think the intent is in the right context to make a transparent, robust and a consistent tax policy and a tax system, and the need for any investor, whether it's a domestic or an overseas, is to ensure that that remains cast in stone, to quote. And I think because sudden movement in taxes and taxation stand and taxation policies are not good for capital formation for a country. So I think if the direct tax code comes in with, or if there's further clarity on the existing tax act, and it remains consistent, and the approach and the mental makeup of the taxman is conducive towards a tax friendliness, which is firm on compliance, but is not focused on kind of harassing or pushing people from a taxation department perspective. I think people will get a lot of confidence and a lot of faith in the taxation system, and whether it's the man on the street or whether it's the big investor wanting to put in capital on the ground. But I don't think we are there as yet. The atmosphere is certainly being a lot more transparent and direct and open, but we will have to see how the entire system works as we go along. And I think it'll be a bit unfair also to expect all of that in the first year of the government. The roadblocks have been largely been addressed. We saw that in one of the litigation cases that happened on an overseas investor, and therefore there is a lot more clarity being provided on this fact. And I think the journey has started. But it's still work in progress.
Okay, final questions to you, Mr. Godrej. Is the economy recovering? Can you feel it in your stores, in the way your consumer goods move?
Well, Lata, for obvious reasons, I can't talk about the current quarter, because until the results are disseminated, we can't talk about it. But overall, we are seeing gradual improvement in consumer demand on the ground. Consumer sentiment is also improving, and we feel in about 2 or 3 quarters, we'll be back to a very high rate of growth in consumer demand in the country. And I think the government is doing all it can to try and improve it. As far as the rural economy goes, I'd like to make 2 points, because there's a lot of discussion as if the rural economy is in disarray. I don't think it is anywhere near that situation. In fact, in the last quarter, our growth in rural India was higher than in urban India. I think the Met's projection of the monsoon being a little on the low side is also been contradicted by the private meteorological forecaster Skymet, who expects a normal monsoon. Last year, if you remember, Skymet had projected a relatively poor monsoon, and the Met department had projected a normal monsoon, and Skymet were right. In the last 2 to 3 years, Skymet's predictions have been correct, and I expect a reasonably good monsoon. I expect rural growth will pick up even further, but even now it's not bad.
Okay, finally, Mr. Godrej, what do you want from the government in the next 365 days?
I think the most important thing will be if the GST is in place by the 1st of April, or if not by 1st of April, soon thereafter. That will make a huge difference to the Indian economy. Any other reform or any other steps taken will be minor, to my mind, in comparison, because the GST will add 2 percentage points to GDP growth, other things being equal, and as soon as the GST is implemented, India should, in my opinion, get into double-digit GDP growth rates.
All right, we're out of time. Mr. Godrej, Kaushik and Dr. Gokarn, thank you very much for joining me on this show. Well, what one can clearly see is that the consumption sector is not complaining so much. Infrastructure still thinks much of it is work in progress. On taxes as well, quite clearly work in progress. And on the macroeconomy, the government seems to have done a very good job. So basically, more pluses than minuses for the first 365 days of the NDA government from India Inc. Thank you for watching this edition of Indianomics.